I'd like to welcome you to our fancy new boardroom and to the West Lafayette Community School Corporation regular board meeting. We have a lot of procedural things to do this evening, and the first thing I would like to do is approve the agenda for the January 13th organizational meeting, which is what we're doing right now. Sorry, I said regular a minute ago. So I need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Rachel. I need a second to approve the agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Daisha. All those in favor, I will start the, look at this. Okay, I will start. All in favor, please vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, are we going to have the public comments before the meeting?
Before the organizational
Because
meeting?
this, there's some vote we are going to have this meeting, so probably we can move these communications from the audience before these things, and then we can have.
Has anyone signed up? I forgot to grab the sheet.
I can have that for you.
That'd be great. Thank
I
you.
don't know if there are any votes. Not sure.
It'd be the blue one. Yeah, the blue one, yeah. Okay, super. Well, there you go. Yes, you are.
I wonder whether the CCHA invoice is part of the consent agenda.
Not
It's separate.
for this meeting. This is the organizational meeting first. So we're going to vote for our new officers, and then that will be part of the regular meeting after we seat the new executive.
Yeah, thank you for clarification.
You bet. Okay, so if everybody could go ahead and vote on whether or not to accept the organizational meeting agenda. Just
We
hit the
can
yes
put a
on
yes here, right?
Yep.
Okay.
There you go. Look at that. We're good at it already. Thank you very much. That is everybody. The next item of business is the elections, and first we will discuss the president. Is there a motion?
Motion to do what?
To do anything, to nominate someone for the president of the board? Okay, Daisha?
So make a motion that Peter nominate?
Yeah, but turn on your button.
Thank you. Okay, so first, to make some clarifying comments, no individual board member has the authority to direct the superintendent. For a long time, this has been the tradition in our school district to have the board president directing the superintendent. It's not appropriate, and we need to change this tradition. So there's two Indiana state statutes that specifically address the authority of the school board president. The first is the school board president has the authority to call a special meeting. The second is after the full school board votes to approve a contract, the board president and secretary has the authority to sign the contract on behalf of the school corporation. Our policies, in addition, give the school board president additional responsibilities, including presiding at meetings, acting as the official spokesman, appointing committees, and approving the agenda. So that's the only things that the school board president is authorized to do that's different than all the other board members. They do not have the authority to direct the superintendent. They don't have the authority to be the gatekeeper of information. So we need a board president who's going to follow the school board policies, ensure equal access to information to all school board members, refrain from withholding information, avoid actions that may cause or create additional liability for the school, and treat all board members with respect and prioritize serving the board rather than seeking to control it. So with that being said, I would like to nominate Lawrence Wong. He has a strong understanding of Robert's rules and our policies, and I believe he'll follow them consistently and accurately. He also is a unifying voice. He's respectful to everyone, and he's committed to create an environment where all 7 members can share their opinions and collaborate effectively.
Okay, Rachel.
I would just like to weigh in on, from my perspective, much of what Mrs. Mumford has shared is speculative with regard to the nature of the operation between the board chair and the superintendent. So I don't agree with the premise of her comments, so I want to kind of make that be known. My hope for tonight, as the most tenured person on the board and looking at what I believe the board needs in the future, is that we would, as a board, agree on someone who has completed a term, someone who is midterm, and someone who's brand new to the board. I think that would give the most balance to the officer slate. So for those reasons, because there's so much difficulty in transition between board chair, I would nominate you, Amy, as the board chair.
Thank you. George?
May I ask, Mrs. Mumford, do you have any examples of directions that you found inappropriate between the president and the...
I did actually just this week. If you notice on the website, currently, when you look under the board members, it lists Mrs. Austin's email address. And then for all other school board members, it just has the general school board email. So I had emailed the superintendent, CC'd all the board members so they'd be aware of what I was sharing, and just said, I would like to have all board members have their emails included, and then have the general email at the top and share that if you want to reach all board members at the same time. Mrs. Austin responded to the email that I sent to Dr. Greiner and told him no, not to do that, that she wants it left that way so that all board members, so the community doesn't have access to board members' emails to email them directly.
So may I ask for clarification then?
Mm-hmm.
So you are asking her not to direct, but in so doing, you were directing.
Nope. So the difference is sharing an opinion. So Mrs. Austin can share with Dr. Greiner that she would like just her email shared and not other school board members, and he can agree to follow that. And it looked like that's where, I don't know behind the scenes if he came up with this on his own or with her recommendation, but then I can step forward and share my opinion. Dr. Greiner's the one that gets to make these decisions and is held accountable by the 7 of us.
So why not
Where
ask,
it
so why not
crosses
ask
the
him?
line, that's what I did, is asked him.
Well, ask him now in this forum.
Ask him to do it, but that's not what we're talking about. The topic we're talking about right now is the president and how they direct the superintendent. And this actually happens quite frequently, where one of us will email the superintendent a question and the board president will intercede and direct him to handle it a certain way, which is not appropriate.
Rachel?
I feel like it's somewhat misleading because you have exhibited half of the email correspondence, but not put in the last sentence of the email correspondence, which was, it would be appropriate for us to hold as it exists now and to discuss it in a public meeting. So Mrs. Austin was really pushing for a public conversation of what we would like to have in terms of an access point or information about our own personal contact information in a public setting rather than privately directing our superintendent to do something. So I do think it's important, if you're going to summarize, that you would summarize the entire concept of the email and not just the part that suits your position.
David?
Just a point of order. Just a point of order. The motion, there was first a motion to nominate Mr. Wong. We need a second on that. We're not at a discussion point. And then there was also another motion to nominate Ms. Austin. I think we need to address that before we move to any discussion or elaboration on reasons for why somebody's nominating somebody.
Yep, we did get derailed there. Thank you very much. Would someone like to second the nomination of Lawrence? UA, okay. And would someone, Rachel nominated me, would someone like to second that?
I'll second.
Great, thank you, George. All right. I would like to point out that on the regular meeting agenda, the no exhibit item between 8 and 9 is board training and communication agreement, and this was a conversation I had intended to lead whether I'm president or not at that time. So I'd like to table this discussion and move forward with any further nominations for president there may be. Yes, Stacia.
I'd like to, just to follow up so that it's clear as board members are considering who to vote for, that I have the actual email in front of me. So I had sent the email to Sean. Amy's response was one sentence long. We have deliberately left the individual school emails off the website to encourage patrons to address the entire board. That was all that was shared in her email. Dr. Griner responded and said that he's willing to listen to the opinion that I had shared. At that point, Amy said, leave it off the website and then we'll discuss it on Monday. So I just want to clarify that the conversation didn't quite happen like Mrs. Witt.
And Monday's being the meeting, but thank you for recapitulating the email. Does anyone else have any nominations for president? Okay, super. I think the way we're going to need to do this is to have a vote on Lawrence first. So I'm going to start the vote. If you would like to vote for Lawrence, indicate with a yes. Abstain is the middle yellow button, and no is the red. Yeah.
Isn't it just a straight up vote on,
You can't vote either or with the system, though. We're going to have to do Lawrence, and then if he doesn't get the majority, then we'll vote for me, right? Isn't that correct? No?
my understanding is that this vote needs to be
Lawrence,
an
Amy,
either
or abstain? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so it could be, pick it alphabetically, maybe one of you is yes, one of you is no.
Okay. I'm willing to do it that way.
Or we can just raise our hand.
Yeah.
Or we can raise our hand. I understand that we have the system, but I
Yeah,
think
we don't have to
the
use it.
vote should be
Okay.
yes, or for one person or not.
So we're voting Lawrence first because he was nominated first, and there'll be a show of hands. And then for me,
He wants to
Show of
abandon, he
hands.
wants to abandon the technology altogether and have a show of hands.
Right.
For Lawrence, and then a show of hands for you.
oh, I see.
Or even just a roll call vote of who you're voting for.
We can do
in a
that.
specific order.
Sure.
That to me makes the most sense in terms of
That makes a lot of
if
sense.
we were independently voting for each person, somebody could technically
Vote
vote
twice.
yes for both of you.
That makes sense.
So that unscrewed.
No, I mean, and it wouldn't be wrong based off of the way that vote would be handled. I think it should, these are typically straight roll call votes.
Sounds good. I like it. Okay, we'll start with you, A. Yeah.
So are you going to make sure the nominees agree? And that's one thing. Another thing is, are we going to have some? No,
Do you want to be president? Because I do.
No, I mean, no, what I'm saying is that's kind of the procedures.
Sure.
And then
Okay.
you have confirmed the nominees accept the nomination, and
Do you?
then we will have some discussions, and then we go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Lawrence, would you like to share whether or not you accept the nomination?
Yes, accept.
Great.
Another thing is there any discussion for this or
I guess
no need to discuss?
weren't we just discussing, but okay, yeah, feel free.
If you would like each of them to take 5 minutes and write out a campaign platform, you can do that.
I'd be happy to. I mean, I think if you'd like to talk about Lawrence or myself or whatever, we can discuss right now.
I second. I just want to
Sure, go ahead.
explain why
Sure.
I do so.
I'm easy.
So I feel, first of all, I agree with what Deja said, and so the president is not the boss of anyone. So according to the policy, actually, the president's main role is to preside the meeting, and Lawrence has a 2 years experience already, and also he diligently studied all the rules, laws, and he's, I think he is very fair, and he will be a good unifier. And plus, I think it would be really nice for all the board members to take a turn to take the leadership role, and first it can share the burden because all the leaders need to take more time than other people, and also we can better use the collective wisdom and to each board member have their expertise and different perspectives. If we can take a turn to do that, unless some people don't want to, otherwise I think it's a healthy way to do the leadership.
Okay.
And so that's
Rachel.
While I agree in principle to what Yue has explained there, I'll also say that it's, in my experience, important to ease those transitions. So as I described earlier, it makes sense to have a person from each station so that there's a plan for evolution in our leadership over time. So that is That is the reason why I nominated you, because I think you have worked with Dr. Reiner now for 2 years, 2 years? 1 year. I can't keep track. And already have a relationship there, and a 2-year cycle for a board chair makes a lot of sense.
Okay, Lawrence, would you like to say anything on your own behalf?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate I have been here for 2 years, and appreciate the first Mr. Wade as president, and also last year, Mr. Amy served as president. I'm very happy, and it's my honor to work with 2 presidents, so that's no problem. And if I'm elected, I think one thing I'm going to do is I will try to build a more unified school board so we can work together for our shared visions and also the goals. And other things, I think we can improve the efficiency and the productivities of our meetings if we follow the rubber rule. So that's not only for the meetings, also for the policy makings. That's something we are working on. And also, I will advocate for more kind of collaborative decision makings. So we make our school board more inclusive, the decision making, more inclusive decision makings, and shared leadership. So that's something if I'm elected. So I'm trying to work on that. Thank you.
David?
I would actually like both candidates to speak a little bit, not just about what they plan to do, like bringing more unity, but how. Like, what are the ways that you plan to bring people together and to work collaboratively? I think it's good practice for us to have whoever is up for election for this role to be able to speak more clearly to that, beyond what's on notes on paper, and really speak about how they're going to unify the board.
Okay, Daisha, do you have anything to add to what you've already said?
Yes, just even to piggyback what Dr. Purpura is saying is we have had a year of Mrs. Austin as president, and it has not been in a unifying experience. And so we have seen from action what she's bringing, and from Lauren's action up to this point, I believe he'll bring unification.
Okay, George?
I only just got here, so I am not in a position to malign anyone. I am going to listen to what the candidates have to say and vote my conscience.
Okay. I don't feel like it'd be appropriate to say anything about Lawrence's candidacy. I think he would probably honestly have a better grasp of Robert's rules than I do. It's very discombobulating when you feel like people are speaking negatively about you to also try to run the meeting. So I think if people were to go back and look, the times when I've gotten most out of order have been the times when someone has been disparaging me personally. As far as unification, I feel like this last year has been a real growth year in terms of our ability to work together. I don't know what direction Daisha thinks that I've been giving Dr. Greiner behind closed doors. I haven't. 99% of the conversations we have are procedural, what's going to be on the agenda, what do we need to do for this, what do we need to do for that, how can I help you do this, that, or the other, and the times when I have given a direction like, no, let's talk about that on Monday, has been in the pursuit of actual transparency and having that conversation in public. Or in the pursuit of not getting people's feelings any more heated by email than they already are. I would love to talk through some training options, and that was one of the things I planned for the discussion regarding communication, and I think that could be very unifying, but I can't unify the board on my own, and I've approached several members of this board and asked for their help in making this a less hostile and less contentious environment, and I've been told flat out no. So I have done everything I could think of to do to make this board function correctly, but I'm only one of 7, and I can't do it by myself. And I would hope that whoever is elected to the presidency, whether it's myself or Lawrence or anyone else, that we all will put our axes down and stop grinding them and start working for the kids, because that's why we're here. So that's all I have to say about that. George, do you have anything to say about me as the seconder? Oh, yeah, buttons.
I am in an interesting position because now I am a board member, but previous to that, I spoke just as a community member. And as a community member, we don't have access to the insider information and to the making of the sausage, as it were, for what went on in the school board. But I can say from what I saw sitting in the audience in the board meetings, it was clear that there was tension. And to me, I think Mrs. Austin dealt with the tension as best she could. She dealt with it as a layperson who was not originally trained in legal issues or school issues, and she rose to the occasion by taking the trainings, by listening to the guidance from the superintendent and the professional staff, and by doing her best to make sure that meetings didn't boil over. Sometimes that can't be helped depending on who you have to work with, but I would be comfortable with Mrs. Austin as president going forward.
Okay, thank you. Daisha,
More comments?
if you'd like to say anything about me?
I thought it was interesting, the comment that you said of trying to help the board work together last year at the very beginning of the year. One of the things I brought up in the meeting was the dysfunctionalism of communication between the board president and the board and Dr. Greiner. And so you had asked me to put together a document that would address that. So at the beginning of last year, I shared that with you, that would address some of these issues that we continue to have. And then you chose just to ignore it and it never addressed it last year. So this is just, to me, more examples of actions that have happened. And so I would like to see a change in our leadership.
Instead, I asked Dr. Greiner if he would be willing to meet with each board member individually, regularly, so that those conversations could be had directly and in person. And I thought that was a good solution, because he was willing to have those meetings so that everyone could feel heard and listened to, and that he could do his best to spin 7 plates and serve 7 chiefs. But I guess that wasn't liked. David?
Since I had asked my original question before you went and you were able to share both the what and how, I'd like for Mr. Wong to also share about how do you plan to do it beyond, you said several what you would like to do, and I think that those are all things that all of us would like, but how would you plan to do that?
That's what I'm trying to answer Dr. Pereira's question. I think the first thing is we school board should be collectively follow the rules. We have school board policies. We can follow the policies. For example, if we run the policy committee, we should follow the open door law to have that open door law. And say, for example, if we want to make meeting agenda, we have that open procedures so everybody can contribute. So also the rubber rules. So we have motions, somebody motion, second discussion and vote, announce the result. So we follow these procedures, and so ensure everybody, the whole team can have some open and respectful discussions for the key issues. And this also improve the efficiency and productivity of our whole school board. I mean, if you look at the Indiana General Assembly, they have over 1,000 bills, several hundred people. They can get the deal done very soon. So we have 7 people, just a couple of policies. We shouldn't take that long time if we follow the rubber rule. So basically, one thing I'm thinking is we need to follow all kind of rules, the state rule, our school policy, and also rubber rule. And also another thing is, I think we need for the school leadership team, we should be more inclusive for that leadership team. So maybe more people get involved, and also we need more inclusive decision-making process. So everybody get involved, everybody kind of ownership of the whole process. So I think those two things, after that, probably we will get moving toward a more unified board. I mean, but given our history situation, I don't think there's some silver bullet we can, get the issue done very quickly. But I believe if we work together, little by little, we can build up a more unified school board. So together we can serve our school and the student and also the whole community together better, in a better way, and in a professional way, accountable way, and also transparent way. Thank you.
Okay. Rachel?
I think that Lawrence has raised some good points. I think it is important to understand the interplay between state law, Robert's rules, and policy. They actually, school board policy. I think they carry very different, but hopefully compatible roles. So I think knowing how those things fit together is very important. It is my intent, should he not be elected, for the president to nominate him for vice, because I think a lot of these issues that Lawrence brings up are wonderful conversations that should be had among the officers and a balanced slate of officers so that they can have those conversations together and determine what is best for the board going forward. But as someone who was board chair for 2 years, I will say that it is highly unreasonable to armchair quarterback the board chair. It is a difficult role. I certainly improved, I believe, through the course of 2 years in the seat, and I would presume that Amy will also improve, and I expect that, in fact, I would anticipate that she does.
Thank you. Yue, would you like to say anything else?
Yeah, I feel a lot of things need to be streamlined and set up a clear policy. And now we have hundreds of policies to build, reorganize. And so, yeah, I hope that the new leader can incorporate all the diverse perspectives and different opinions, and so I think Lawrence will be ideal for that. And also, again, he knows the rules very well. And so in many occasions, I found that he knows the rules very well. And so I feel that will be very helpful for us to work together. Again, I really don't think the president is the boss, and it's just somebody who organizes the rest of us to work together.
Okay, we've all had 2 chances to speak on this issue. Does anyone have anything else to say? What? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to call this to vote in a roll call vote.
Okay, sounds great.
We need a second.
We need a second. Rachel? Oh, okay. Okay. So moved by David and seconded by Rachel. Initials are hard. Okay, that means we go ahead and do it. We don't have to talk about whether or not we're going to do it. Great. I'm going to go backwards in alphabetical order. Yue, can I have your vote for president, please?
Lawrence.
Okay. Rachel?
Amy?
Thank you. Lawrence? David?
Ms. Austin.
Daisha?
Mr. Wong?
George?
Mrs. Austin.
Thank you. And I will be happy to continue. So that's 4 votes in my favor and 3 in Mr. Wong's. So thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence. And next, we will move on to the vice president vote. And now that I'm a little more combobulated, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take nominations, and once all the nominations have been seconded, well, nomination is second, nomination is second, nomination is second, and so on, and then we'll go down and back and talk about whatever we want to talk about in our time, and then we'll do the roll call vote. Does that sound acceptable? Cool. Rachel.
would like to nominate Lawrence Wong as vice. And I'd like to give a couple of good reasons for that, that I think this is a great opportunity to talk about his strengths. First, he has actively sought out training opportunities. In 2 years, he has exceeded both of our other members, our other new members, in his points through the ISBA. He's particularly focused on legal and financial matters, and without prompting has provided those reports to the rest of the board for our own benefit. He always responds in a very timely manner to questions. He honors the board bylaws, such as holding executive sessions confidential, avoiding politicization of board matters on social media, and those types of kind of softer skills. He has a strong pattern of attendance. He arrives on time, he's ready to go, and I always have great confidence in his reliability. And he also consistently seeks out information so he can vote a yes or no rather than abstaining. So in general, I really appreciate his professional, kind of non-emotional language and participation in meetings. And for these reasons, I would nominate him as vice president. I think he will be a great contributor to that kind of three-part conversation that should happen among our officers.
Thank you. All right, I need a second for Lawrence. That's George. Okay, great, thank you. And are there any other nominations? David?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Yin. Are we doing comments now, or were we going to wait till after the seconds?
You can go ahead and do comments now.
I think that she has 4 years of service on the board, has a really strong track record of engaging with the community, and I think that there's been a lot of work that she's done to help build towards a stronger school board, and I would like to see her as our vice president.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? A second for Dr. Yin?
Well, I don't know if they want to serve. I guess I'd love to hear that before the second happens.
Well, that's the next question, isn't it?
Well, in some ways, when I'm making a second, I'm kind of saying which I want, and I don't even know if either of them would like to serve, so I would like to hear that so that I'm not
Okay.
trying to.
Lawrence, are you willing to serve as vice president?
Yes.
Thank you. Yue, are you? You will support Lawrence. Okay, well. Are there any other nominations? Okay, in that case, do we need to vote or can we just, okay. We'll do the same thing we did before, only we'll start at this side, and I will support Lawrence sorry, I don't write fast enough. And then George.
Yes.
Okay, Daisha.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes?
Yue.
Yes.
Okay, well, isn't that nice to have a unanimous vote? Lovely. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move on to the secretary. So first, we need a nomination, and so you would prefer to do nominations and then acceptances. Sure, I'm super flexible. All right. I need a nomination, please.
I'd like to nominate you again.
Okay. Yue, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a second?
No, I need a second.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Lawrence. Oh, let's just go down the row. It's easier to keep track of. Is that okay? Can we start with Rachel and we'll loop back around to you?
I'd like to make a nomination.
Oh, okay, let's do that then.
I'd like to nominate George Lyle.
Okay, and your RW. George, do you accept?
Oh, you need a second.
Shoot, I thought we were doing it the other way. Who seconds? David, thank you. Yeah, okay. So, is there anybody else? Super. Okay, here's how we're going to do. We're going to start with Rachel. We're going to go down this way. We're going to loop back to Yue, and then we'll do it again. And so we'll each get 2 opportunities to speak. Rachel, go ahead.
George brings unique insight with his legal expertise and his demeanor and communication. In particular, I think that will be helpful in developing of minutes and consistency in that way. I also think he is an excellent third person to the officer slate and would bring some much needed balance and wisdom to that. And those are the reasons I've nominated him.
Great. Lawrence?
Yeah, the reason why I'm second nomination of Dr. Yin as your board secretary. So my observation is over the of her first term, 4 years, she's dedicated service on the board. She has consistently demonstrated a strong commitment to promote transparency and also accountability of the whole school board. So both of those values are essential for a successful school board. And the major responsibilities of board secretary is to ensure that our meeting minutes are accurate, reliable, and thorough. And I appreciate the previous secretaries, Mr. Austin and also Tom Schott. Yeah, they both of them serve in this role. Thank you for their leadership and also their dedications. Our meeting minutes is much better during the last 2 years. But I think there are still some things we can make that better. So those minutes not just a record of our discussion and also decisions. They are a vital tool for maintaining transparency and also building trust with our school community. And Dr. Yin's 4 years experience, her education, and also attendance to the details, dedicated to the principles of open communication, and Janelle's community engagement make her an ideal candidate for this board secretary position. So I'm fully confident that Dr. Yin will be is well suited for this role. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I have nothing to add. I would
Okay.
like to hear
That's
both
fine.
candidates say why.
Okay. We'll get there. Daisha?
Our policy states that the secretary's role is to keep the minutes, sign documents, and then assume responsibilities of the president if both the president and vice president are absent. So we need someone that's going to keep accurate, neutral minutes that comply with open door law. Last year, at the beginning of the year, when there was a lot of issues with the minutes, Mrs. Austin had asked Dr. Yin to put together a document that would put some clear procedures and a timeline in place, because there's a lot of inconsistencies in the way the minutes are kept and shared. So she did that, but that document was ignored. So I think she has already demonstrated that she's put forth time and effort to make sure the minutes are comprehensive and inclusive. So I think she would do a nice job as secretary.
Thank you. George?
Well, I appreciate the trust that Mrs. Witt has placed in me. And on that note, I would venture to guess that most people in this community don't attend these meetings. And most people probably don't tune into the live stream because it is 2.5 hours of the worst television you will ever find. And so the majority of what people know about what we do here usually comes from two places: the gentleman with the bandage on his head in the audience and from the minutes that we publish. And it is my honest intent to make the minutes as neutral, useful, and thorough as possible. Because if the board speaks with one voice, the minutes and the other documents that we put out are usually the only voice that gets heard.
Thanks. As for me, I think your last sentence sums up why I would like to support you very well. So we'll loop back around to Dr. Yin.
And over the past 4 years, actually, I think our minutes have improved a lot and become more and more informative, and I really appreciate the hard work of Roberta and the secretaries. I would like to continue to work closely with both Roberta and the board members to make the minutes thorough, informative, and neutral, and to promote transparency and efficiency. And as Deja said earlier last year, I have proposed some procedures to streamline the process of preparing minutes, and I will continue to work with the board members to do that. And also, I have some other ideas I hope we can try out. For example, frequently we have recognitions for those students. Every time I was so moved by the recognition notes that the teachers and the principals share. I hope those information can go into the minutes as well, because that's a great record for both those students who are recognized and for others because they are role models. And also I will love to collaborate with all the board members to brainstorm ideas for how to make the minutes more helpful for the community and be inclusive. And yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Rachel, your second opportunity here.
I think that we all in this room recognize that the board could do a better job in its collaboration and communication. I think that's been stated in many ways here tonight. We have established that there is someone experienced. We have established that there is someone midterm, experienced in different ways. I believe that fresh eyes are a necessary piece to make that best progress that we need. And George's eyes in that officer slate are they're necessary. They're going to see things that the rest of us have sitting in front of us as he learns through his onboarding. So I'd just like to remind the board of balance.
Okay, thanks. Lawrence?
Just, I forgot to appreciate Roberta because she's a major workers on these meeting minutes. I really appreciate that. And I still believe Dr. Yin will be work with Roberta and all the board members. We can have a better meeting minutes record for our school board. Thank you.
David? Okay, Daisha? George?
Spoken enough.
Me too. Yue, your last opportunity to speak before we take the roll call vote. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Great, okay. Let me write everybody's initials down real quick, because they're new. Okay. Yue, you vote for? Okay. Rachel?
George?
And Lawrence?
Dr. Yin?
And David?
Mr. Lyle?
And Daisha?
Dr. Yin?
And George?
George.
And I also would like to vote for George for lots of reasons. And welcome and good luck. That's a big first day. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the seating of the board president, which I'm already here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, can I ask a procedural question?
Yes.
There's been a lot of inconsistency tonight between Mr. and first name. I know in the past we've kind of designated one or the other. Would you mind giving us that direction tonight? Because I do not want to inadvertently offend anyone not using a title.
I have received feedback that it feels less oppositional when we use each other's first names, and I agree with that it's more collegial. So that would be my preference. If anyone objects to being addressed by their first name, now's the time to say so. Cool? Okay, first names it is. Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I may have trouble remembering that, though.
It's okay.
My mom hit me if.
Oh.
Not hard.
As long as you don't call me Mr. Is there a motion with this? No.
I would probably do Dr. or Mr. or Mrs.
That's fine, yeah. Sure. Okay, so the only seating change that needs to happen is for Lawrence and Daisha to switch places, I believe. If you would take a moment and do that, that'd be super. And then, yeah, the name tags can move. They're stuck, but they'll come off.
What do you think? You want to?
We can do it next meeting.
Okay, that's fine. No problem. Does anybody know why seating of the board president has motion?
Technical phrase, you're officially seated.
Oh, okay. So do I need to?
No.
Okay.
You can stand up and sit back down.
I could. That sounds like a plan. There we go. Okay. I have been seated. Holy smoke. The next item is C on here, board appointments for 2025. And it has been the tradition for a very long time for our CFO to serve as our corporation treasurer because no one else would dare. And so I would like to hear a motion for Michelle Cronk to be appointed as our treasurer, please. Moved by Lawrence, seconded by David. Do we need any discussion on that one? Great. All those in favor, oops.
Thank Michelle for his.
Thank God for Michelle and for people whose brains work like yours.
No one else in this room was qualified to do it, so.
Definitely. All right, all those in favor of keeping Michelle exactly where she is, please. Oh, we're going to do this, aren't we? That's so fun. There we go. Please hit yes. Wonderful. Thank you. The next item is to bond these positions, and that is insurance that the school corporation obtains against errors and omissions. Is that correct? So Mrs. Cronk is bonded at $100,000, and so is Janelle Wade, and our ECA treasurer, which is Leanne Montemayor, and athletic secretary of Robin Beckham are each at $25,000. Could I have a motion, please? Moved by Rachel, seconded by Lawrence. Do we need to have any discussion on this one? Super. Let me reopen the voting. All those in favor, please indicate with a yes. Wonderful. Okay. And the next item is our school corporation physicians. They have seen us through some extremely difficult moments. They share the position, and that is at their request, if I recall correctly. They like it that way. Dr. Chester Ho and Dr. Anne-Marie Bianculli. I would need a motion, please. Moved by George, seconded by David. Okay, and we'll reopen the vote.
I have a quick
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's just procedural. Did it work out? Are these votes showing up online? Is it more, I didn't know for the audio if it would be helpful to announce the final vote.
I believe they are showing up, right, Brandon?
They're showing up?
They're showing up. There's a
And then is
little, like, thought bubble above us.
Is it helpful for the recording just to announce what the final vote is? So
I can do that.
If
Sure.
those listening just can hear.
Yeah, that's fine, because it's, well, it is behind us, so. But, okay, yeah, I'd be happy to.
But some people might just be listening.
Sure. Rachel? Yeah.
Not related to that, I just had a comment on this one, since we're at first and second. We're ready for discussion on this, correct?
On the doctors?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add on what Dr. Reiner said. He included his note to us, but he always does a wonderful job in also soliciting the opinions of our school nurses, and they were also in agreement with this, which is a compelling case for renewing this appointment.
Absolutely. Okay, we will go ahead and vote on the appointment of our school corporation physicians now. And that is a unanimous vote again. Thank you. There's so many buttons. Okay. Last, we are going to appoint our school attorneys. I will need a motion. Moved by Rachel. A second by George. Okay, any discussion? Lawrence?
A quick question, maybe update from Dr. Grenner. So regarding our school policies update, are we going to have a contract with the CCHAs regarding the school policy update?
Are we going to renew the contract?
No, I think we don't have any, as far as I understand, we don't have a contract details, what's the responsibilities of each person, how much, their time, effort they were put in, what we should do, that kind of thing. So I'm just wondering, is there any update on that?
The transition contract remains in effect until it's finished.
But that include the effort, include their continuous contract, the regular contract?
There's an annual fee. I'd have to, do you know what that is?
For the, just to be our, like, retainer?
Yes.
We have a retainer each month.
But isn't there an annual fee for the policies is what Mr. Wong
I'd have
has
to
mentioned?
look that up with
Well,
Laura.
we can look that up and I'll put it in Friday notes, but there is an annual fee to it. But the original amount for the transition, that's in effect to get us transitioned fully to the new policies.
That's 16,000 fees for these things.
Correct.
So are we going to have a new contract with them or just kind of add some clause on that?
It's not a new contract, it's just a retainer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this,
Point of order.
yeah, please.
We were discussing the renewal or the appointment of the school attorney, not other contracts.
Right.
So that would be something for the regular meeting.
I agree. And
this is-
also,
this
I
is
think
the
that's two
annual-
separate issues. Yeah, the renewal or the transfer to the new policies was a separate contract we had with them, and this one is for our general representation.
Yeah,
Rachel?
my concern is because, I mean, I need to make a decision whether or not to renew that based on, that's pretty big effort. We are working with them and I want more detailed information so I can make a well-informed decision on this motion. So that's why I just asked Dr. Gardner update. So
Okay,
that is,
Rachel?
thank you.
With regard to the appointment of the school attorney, if the board were to initiate a change in attorneys, we would not terminate the current attorney before we hired a new one. That would leave the school corporation vulnerable. So because there's not been any work, if we were for some reason to decide to switch, a vote against this tonight would leave our school corporation exposed. So that's a greater conversation.
Okay, George?
I understand David's point about this being slightly out of order, but since we're on the subject, I have to ask, why did we structure the business so that they have a retainer and a separate fee for some of the other work?
There's not the separate fee, the retainer is typical business. A separate fee for services could be an example of if there's a lawsuit and they're spending lots of hours collecting information and representing the corporation.
Yeah, and I get that, and that's pretty standard, but so is there a retainer plus an hourly fee, or are they charging basically per action item?
The retainer covers most things.
Hey, I'm going to turn my button back on. Any other questions or comments before we go ahead and appoint the school attorneys? Okay, I'm going to open up, oh, that's the wrong button. There we go. And that is 7 out of 7 in favor. Thank you. Okay, the next item is under other business, and it concerns the board compensation. We receive $2,000 per year per board member plus $150 per meeting, but if we stack meetings like we have tonight, that's all one meeting. So there's also $75 per meeting. Wait, I'm sorry. Oh, for executive sessions, right? That's 75. I never count. It's about a nickel an hour, right? Okay, so I need a motion for that, please. Moved by Lawrence. Is there a second? George? Any discussion?
Yeah, just a clarification.
Oh, shoot.
No, nothing difficult, I hope. But those rates are written into Indiana code, right?
Yeah, we're limited by what Indianapolis pays their school board. And I think last year it was that they talked about raising it, but they didn't that I'm aware of, so.
That's just, in the idea of transparency, I just want to make it clear that this is not something that we are deciding to pay ourselves.
Correct.
This is what we have been told we have to pay ourselves.
That's true. Daisha?
My understanding is it's the max amount. So we actually could pay ourselves less. It's just they set what's the maximum amount. So we do have some control over that, just to clarify.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about before we go ahead and do the vote? Rachel?
I know that the West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation would gladly take any member's compensation as a donation should we desire to rid ourselves of it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start the vote. All those in favor of the board compensation as it's listed, please indicate with your buttons. And my button, there we go. Okay, that's 7 out of 7 again. One more time. Next, we are going to appoint the Education Foundation. I cannot overstate how much good they do. Rachel?
I would like to request that appointment this year.
Oh, thank
I've
you.
served previously on the Education Foundation. I'm familiar with the members, and I think that it would be a good time for a change in board teacher discussion. I've served there several years at this point, and so perhaps you might like to reassign that for this coming year.
Okay. So Rachel has nominated herself. Is there a second? Lawrence?
A second.
Great. Any discussion? I'm cool with that. All right. Oh, I got to do new buttons. Sorry. There's so many. Okay. There we go. All those in favor of Rachel being appointed to the foundation? Wonderful. That is 7 out of 7 again. Super. Oh, that was so much. We're going to stop that vote. And I am going to adjourn this meeting, and we will immediately switch to the regular board meeting. I need a motion, please. David, seconded by George. All those in favor of adjourning the organizational meeting of Stress, please indicate with a raised hand. Or no, with a button. Oh, shoot. I'm not used to buttons. There we go. Goodness. Hey, that's everybody again. Thank you. All right, now,
May we take a 5-minute recess?
I would love to take a 5-minute recess. What a good idea. Thank you. We're going to recess for 5 minutes. Okay, the button. I'm going to call us back to order. And it is 7:03, and we don't have a school this evening, but Dr. Greiner, I understand there's something you'd like to talk us about.
Absolutely. So today, the recognition is all about you. As we celebrate ISBA Board Appreciation Month, our team would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to the West Lafayette Community School Corporation Board of Trustees. Your dedication, your guidance, and your service impact our students and our community. We thank you for your leadership and your commitment to excellence. We'd also like to present you with a small token of our appreciation. So thank you for all that you do for our schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's very unexpected. Thank you.
I haven't done anything yet.
Not yet. Thank you. That's super. I'll wait for them to finish before I go on. There we go.
Should we open them now or should we wait till we get up?
It's like Christmas.
You can
have to
open
wait
them
till
now, but don't
morning.
forget. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, and next we will move on to communication from the audience, of which we have none, but I did remember to grab the paper. So following that is our consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull anything out of the consent agenda before I get all excited? Mrs. Mumford, go ahead.
I'd like to pull the Wonderland lease.
Okay.
Just because I have a couple of questions.
Is there a second to pull the Wonderland? No, we don't do a second for that, Amy. All right, we'll move that down below the consent agenda. Is there anything else that we'd like to pull?
I wonder whether the CCHA invoices are in the consent agenda or not.
I don't believe so. I believe they were in the board packet just for information only, but I don't see any motions about CCHA on here.
Yeah, if I have questions, then I can still ask about it when we discuss that entry, right?
When would you like that to happen? Would that be accounts payable? Okay.
She would, Dr. Yin, you would need to request to pull the accounts
Yeah,
payable.
that's what I
Okay,
thought.
let's
Okay.
do that.
Thank you.
We'll move that. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 as the consent agenda. Then we'll talk about the Wonderland lease, which is number 4, and then we'll talk about accounts payable, which is number 7. So I need a motion for the rest of the consent agenda. No, what's the matter?
The one I'm talking about is number 9, the CCHA invoice. I'm not sure whether it's in the consent form.
It is
consent
not.
agenda.
It's
If
9
not,
is Mrs. Kronk on
it's a
the,
part of the account payable.
Account payable.
Oh,
yeah, we'll talk about it there. That'll
yeah,
work.
thanks.
Okay, so I need a motion concerning the rest of the consent agenda then. Moved by Rachel, seconded by Lawrence. Is there any discussion? No, we don't do discussion. All right, we're going to do a vote with the buttons to approve the consent agenda. There we go. Nice. 7 out of 7 approve the consent agenda. Now, Daisha, would you like to talk about the Wonderland lease?
Yes, I think Wonderland's great. My question is, I know community members have questions about Happy Hollow, so I was wondering if Dr. Greiner, since this involves the Happy Hollow building and committing us to a certain time period, if you'd give the community an update of kind of where we're at with Happy Hollow.
I would be happy to do that, Mrs. Mumford. So we are in the process now of putting together a plan to collect information from stakeholders. And obviously, we just sent an email to stakeholders. So Wonderland received an email today explaining that we're working through this process now. And we plan to report to the board by December 2025. And with that, we also want to collect community input. And so we're actually working with a couple of individuals to find out a good person to facilitate that dialogue for us. And so we will collect community input. We want to maybe do a brief survey. And then we want to engage in dialogue with the board. And then we want to be prepared to present to the board. We're also the people that are using the facility now, as well as our school leaders that use the building now. We're setting up individual meetings with school-related folks, and then we're welcoming people that are leasing that would like to provide us with additional information too. So all of those things will be considered, and that's the process that we plan to work through, and we're developing that plan now.
That was everything. Thank you.
Rachel?
My pleasure.
I just want to clarify, the one thing that I didn't hear you mention was the strategic plan. So that would also weigh into the use of this facility as well, wouldn't it?
So it's separate from what has been occurring now with strategic planning. It will be tied into that because it is strategic planning. But it's not the work right now that Mr. Jones is doing with the surveys and so forth. This will be additional on top of that. But yes, it is part of overall strategic planning because it's strategically planning where we're going with that building. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you for the clarification.
My pleasure.
Okay, is there anything else we need to discuss with regard to item number 4? Okay, then I need a motion. Moved by Daisha, second by Lawrence. All right, buttons. All those in favor of renewing the Wonderland lease, please indicate with your buttons. Okay, we have,
Point of information, I'm abstaining because I'm on their board.
oh, fair
Unpaid,
enough.
But I just wanted to make clear on that.
Okay, thank you. So we have 6 yeses and 1 abstention. And we appreciate that. Okay. 6, 1, abstain. Okay. Next, we need to talk about the accounts payable. Yue, what would you like to talk about?
I noticed that the legal service, CCHA, charges us $837 for public access request. So if I'm not wrong, that request was about the messages sent on the election day about the misinformation about me by exponents. So I'm kind of confused by this charge. First of all, that none of those messages are kind of involve anybody else and like involve privacy. I wonder why do we have to consult them for this public request? Because 837 sounds a lot. Also, there are about 17 messages among us, but only 7 were shared to the public. I wonder what's the rationale for the decision. And then the third question will be, can we learn their rationale so in the future we don't need to hear them again for, I feel it's quite a trivial thing, but we spend a lot on this and I feel we have nothing to hide. Why don't we just share the information rather than consulting them and pay them so much?
So the first question was whether or not our cell phone records were subject to public access requests, because the school does not pay for this phone, I do. And the second thing I'd like to address is I asked all the board members at that time to turn over any relevant texts that they had, including yourself. And the only texts that I received in reply were Rachel's, which is why on the document that we sent back to that patron, her comments were blue and the rest were gray. So if you felt there was more information to be shared, I'm curious why you didn't send it to me when I requested that.
I must have missed that request.
Okay.
And so in general, the procedure is just because you have I thought you have all the message. You are in that group. You have all the messages. So I thought the community member asked for it. Then after you talk to the lawyer, you will just share what you have. I didn't realize that everybody has to share.
No, it was requested that each board member contribute what they thought answered the request, and Rachel turned over what she thought answered the request. If you thought there were 17 messages, then that should have come from you.
Okay, I saw you have them, so you will just share. I didn't realize we
I didn't
have to
feel like
each-
it was my words to turn over at that point. I felt like if a board member felt like their words needed to be made public in that way, that they should initiate that. Just like if you and I were having a text conversation and there was a public access request about it, I would turn over what I had said, but I wouldn't necessarily turn over what you had said, particularly after being accused of making unilateral decisions all night. So that was, my feeling was each person who was involved should turn over what they felt was appropriate, and Rachel did.
Okay,
because
so-
she did most of the talking in that.
So this will be a kind of general rule, because what I'm trying to avoid is not spend money on this unnecessary charge.
The money that was spent was the lawyer's time debating with me mainly about whether or not it was an appropriate request, and explaining to me how our phones that we pay for, that actually the issue was largely because I'm a government contractor, and my phone, if my phone gets stolen, the first person I need to call is the FBI, because my work email is on it, and it's subject to ITAR, International Trafficking in Arms Regulations. So I was very concerned about the precedent of turning over anything from my phone to anyone, and the compromise that she and I came up with was that we would ask individual board members to turn over their own information. Rachel?
I just want to say that the email request that you sent to the board was timely and was very clear and specific, and gave a specific deadline for response, which I met. So thank you for that clear communication.
Thanks. Anybody else need to say anything about this?
Just to clarify, in the future, if the public request any public access to information, and we should, each of us, even if you have all the emails communication, each of us should share our own version.
I would say if I send a request for your texts regarding that public information request, that you should send me what you think is appropriate. If you had sent me 17 and Rachel had sent me 7, I would have included 17.
Okay, so it's not the lawyer who decided which one will be shared, and I just want to know
In terms of email, what happens is Mr. Hamilton will run a search for keywords in the email and turn over to Roberta, I believe, who then sends it out to the lawyers.
So every time, do we have to send that to the lawyer? Because I just wonder whether we can make our own decisions sometimes. Because
Only about
before-
your own phone. Because Mr. Hamilton isn't going to go through my phone
Oh, okay.
unless the FBI tells him to. And so
So for emails then?
for
so
emails,
the
Mr. Hamilton
individuals
takes
have
care
no
of it,
control.
and you don't have to control it. But for texts, it was different, and that was largely what the conversation was concerning.
So when we share the text communication, and for example, Rachel shared others as well, do other people need to give the permission to be shared? Or I just trying to figure out the procedures so in the future we can follow it better rather than.
Well, that actually flows nicely into what I want to talk about in a couple of minutes about board training versus communication agreements. So can we table this and have that conversation then?
Yeah, sure,
Great.
thanks.
Anything else? Okay, I need a motion concerning the accounts payable and whether or not to approve it. David? And, oh, I just made you Dacia, sorry, DP. And a second from Rachel, thank you. All right, buttons. There we go. Okay. Okay, that's everybody. Thank you. We don't have any unfinished business, so the next item is Mrs. Kronk with a transfer resolution.
Okay. If you remember, during the 2024 GO bond process, it was determined that the balance of the 17 lease construction account would be used to make debt service payments in 2025. The transfer from the 17 lease fund to the debt service fund was included as well as part of the 25 budget that was approved this past October. The balance as of 12/31/24 in the 17 lease fund was $2,853,362.45 after posting accrued interest. We have included a transfer resolution for your approval in your board packets. Please approve that transfer as outlined.
Okay, I need a motion, please. Moved by George, second. Seconded by Lawrence, thank you. Do we need any discussion about the transfer resolution? The vote come up. A particular example.
Amy, I don't think your microphone's on.
Thank you very much. We've had several comments just tonight about communication and how we could improve that among the board. And also, we have learned recently that our personal text messages are subject to the the Freedom of Information Act, but we will turn them over ourselves rather than having our phones searched. I think this is a good time, as we have new board members, to come to some kind of agreement as to how we're going to communicate and when and what information needs to be handled in what way. Currently, our practice is for Dr. Greiner and his team to send out Friday notes every Friday, letting us know what he's been up to through the week, letting us know what's coming, what might come up at the next board meeting, what's been resolved from the last board meeting, and so on. Emergency communication used to come out via text, but at this time, I will hear from Dr. Greiner that there is an emergency. Say there's fire trucks at the high school. Suddenly you'll start getting a lot of phone calls. Welcome to the board. And people will want to know, hey, what's going on at the high school? And so Dr. Greiner will tell me, somebody was smoking in the bathroom and it set off the fire alarm. I'll give you more information as I have it. And he'll go handle the problem. Sorry, nobody's smoking. I'm sorry. Okay, fair.
They're just reenacting a scene from Grease.
I didn't want to start a rumor that there was something terrible happening somewhere right now. So I will send I will send a text out to the whole group that says, check your email urgently. And Dr. Greiner or I, depending on who is closer to a computer and has the bandwidth to do it at that moment, but it's mostly been Dr. Greiner, will send out the information so that if you start getting calls from patrons, you have an answer for them, which is handy, particularly in emergency situations when everybody is worried about their kids. I would like to come up with an agreement that we can all adhere to and follow so that a year from now, when we're having these discussions again in the organizational meeting, we can say, we came up with a plan and Amy followed it, or we came up with a plan and Amy didn't follow it, or somewhere in between. So what I need to know is, how would you like to communicate with me? Because I'm receiving very few phone calls, questions, requests for further information. And I want to avoid the situation we got into with the website in particular, because Mrs. Julian and I had talked about a particular board member who didn't want their personal information published. And so I said to her, in the interest of transparency, I think if a patron is going to email the board, they should email all of us. If there's something private, why don't we leave mine on there so that they can just email me and I can anonymize it and then forward it. But if someone has a concern, I think it's reasonable and appropriate for all 7 of us to get that simultaneously. So I guess we need to talk about communication from the public, communication to the public, communication by text, communication by email, communication by phone. Yes, Rachel.
I would like to address the issue of communication from the community and just share my perspective. we are not on the board to serve our friends. We're on the board to serve the full community. So if someone in the community has a concern or a question about the work of the board or our schools, it would seem to me to be very appropriate to communicate with the entire board. Anyone who is our friend and would like our opinion on a personal basis would presumably already have our contact information. So I am very comfortable with just using a single board email for the interests of transparency and also clarity. We've had some vagueness over the past years over what a few patrons or a lot of patrons are, and that kind of subjective language, and I would prefer that be more factual. If we all receive it, then we all see exactly the same things.
Thanks. George, don't forget your button.
Yeah. I hear that point and understand it. What I think might be a good idea is we've all been assigned email addresses from the school district, correct?
Yep.
And each one of those is centrally managed and it's subject to discovery, correct? Instead of putting any personal information like our personal email address or personal phone, we have a board address and then we put each of our district addresses on there because there may be moments where a member of the public wants to address us all, but there may be moments where a member of the public is only comfortable addressing one or two of us. And even if that email only goes to one or two of us, it's still in a publicly owned inbox that is subject to discovery.
So you would prefer no texts and no phone calls and everything to be done by email?
I'm speaking specifically about
Specifically
communication from
patron.
the public.
Okay, okay.
Communication amongst us is an entirely different matter that
Gotcha.
we should discuss separately.
Yep, okay, fair enough. Rachel?
I also would be comfortable with that approach, George. Thank you for sharing your insight.
Okay, David?
I agree that I think all of our emails should be on the website. There maybe have a note at the top that we say we encourage you to express your concerns or thoughts to all of the board members and to do so in an easy way. Here's an email address that goes to all board members, and that's where we put the all school board member email.
Okay. Daisha, do you have thoughts?
I agree with the comments that Mr. Lyle, that George and David have both shared.
Okay. Lawrence, Yui, anything to add?
I agree with George.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
have,
think it's good to give the public options.
okay. Can we make an agreement then, just a second, can we make an agreement then that if we get if someone sends an email to me that is pertinent to an issue before the board, if they just want to yell at me about the lunch options, that's fine. But if it's something that we're going to be voting on or that's going to come up in a meeting, can we all agree that if we receive a patron email, that we will anonymize it and then forward it to the rest of us? I think that would be fair. Take out the names, take out the identifying information. If they say, my daughter, make it my child, et cetera, and notate where you've done so. But then that way, all of us are singing from the same book rather than 7 different books. Rachel?
I just had a question, what your preference would be for also including Dr. Greiner in those communications from us. We typically have always included Dr. Greiner in those, and I would assume you mean us to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the group board email actually included Dr. Greiner.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember we clarified that. It's not just the board members.
Right. Daisha, did you?
I was going to say, from my understanding, when we hear from community members, the first thing that we're trying to do is encourage them to follow the chain of command. So I know there has been times that if someone has reached out, the first step should be sending them to a principal or the superintendent, and then as a board, we're removed from it now.
Correct.
And I support that when it's something that a community member would like shared with the board on a board topic, that's very appropriate to share with the board. So
Right. For things like that, like, I need to talk to somebody about my child's science grade, and I send them back to the science teacher, of course, that would not need to be forwarded. I don't want to inundate everyone with email. But if it's something that we're going to be quoting during a meeting or saying, I've received a ton of emails about pickleball or whatever the issue is, that's something that I think would be appropriate to send to everyone and anonymize. Is that fair? You could even write the person back and say, I'd like to forward your comments to the rest of the board. Would you like me to do that anonymously, or can I put your name on it? That's fair too. But I think by the next meeting, we should all have all the emails from all the patrons that everyone else has. Is that reasonable? Okay. So from the public, all emails are going to be on the website. We're going to encourage use of the CC email and forward emails from patrons to the rest of the board and Dr. Greiner. Okay, so let's talk about communicating to the public. In the past, when I first joined the board, the president was the spokesperson for the board, and if an individual board member were to desire to speak with the press or the public in any way, that would be not necessarily approved by, but run by the president, so that the president could then say, you know, you're kind of walking right into a landmine. You might want to walk that back before you have that conversation, or so on, just to put a second set of eyes on the information that was going out. And I don't remember if it was David or George, but one of you spoke about speaking with one voice as a board. I think it was you, George. And I do feel that that's very important, and that's something we've very much gotten away from in the past 4 years. So I would like to hear your thoughts on a communication agreement to the public. Does anyone have them? Daisha?
So we actually have two policies on this. The first policy is policy 0143.1 on public expression. And our policy states that the board president functions as the official spokesperson for the board. ISBA clarifies that this communication should be sanctioned by the entire board. So when a board president is determining that they want to share a message with the public from the board, the recommendation from ISBA is that this information is shared with the board ahead of time. The board feels comfortable with that message being sent from the board. It's not the board president's opinion, or the board president wants to say this and only seeks leadership's input or only seeks a couple people's input. The comment of functioning as the official spokesperson needs to be involving the whole board. And then the second one that was brought up was responding to emails from the entire community, when the community emails the whole board email. And as you shared, the president has been doing this. The policy actually says the board secretary. So policy 9130 says the board secretary will send an acknowledgement. And what I have witnessed while I've served on the board is that the president's responding and not only sending an acknowledgement, but stating their opinions to the community member. And this is where that gray area is not appropriate, as anyone on the board is to state our own opinion and say it's representing the whole board. And so our policy clearly helps us see that when someone shares a communication with us, the board secretary, which is what our policy says, should send, I guess this way, should be sending an acknowledgement, letting them know we have received your email. We forward it to Dr. Greiner, or all board members are aware, but that's where it stops. It isn't then that board member's responsibility to share their own opinion in their position as a board member.
Okay, George, would you be amenable to sending out that communication from now on? If we receive an email from the public, just acknowledging it and saying we've taken whatever action or we are aware?
I would, yeah.
Great, thanks.
I have a question.
Yep.
So besides the confirmation of receiving the email, do we send the follow-ups? Or we
Do
don't?
we send what?
Follow-ups to the public if they have an inquiry or suggestion or whatever, and we will say, oh, we received your email.
Okay.
So afterwards, will we follow up, or we will just let it go?
It looks like Rachel has something to say, and I suddenly have the hiccups, so go ahead.
Well, I was just going to give you a backstory. There's no, historically speaking, there's nothing nefarious happening there. Generally speaking, when a patron messages the board chair or the board, it's 9 times out of 10, it's an explanation of things that have occurred that are factual. And so in that case, it's kind of the secretary in practice could send an email, said, thank you, we received your communication. The board chair kind of has comboed those two things along with the explanation or sharing of information. And so I don't think that that's been the case for 11 plus years that I've been on the board. So and that was definitely the approach that I took. I agree with Mrs. Mumford that sometimes it does get into a gray area of sharing opinion of the board chair. To some degree, we have to recognize when we vote for the board chair, though, we are placing him in the role of spokesperson on behalf of the board. And so to some degree, their opinion does, or their method of responding to patrons is appropriate. So we are electing them with confidence that they can do so. But I'm not opposed to the idea of board members weighing in on their thoughts on that, but ultimately it would come down to the chair to determine what would be said in response in detail anyway. But I wanted to just offer you the historical perspective on that one.
Thank you. Daisha?
So as the board chair, there's no special authority or power that you're given. The board chair is given through that vote. And so when someone is responding, for example, to an email, either the secretary or the president, like I said, as our policy currently says secretary, but we could put anyone in there, they're representing the board. And so there's not a lot of information unless the board together has sanctioned that, as ISBA has stated.
How would you want that to be done?
So typically what happens is it's the superintendent. Any information that needs to be shared, everything is going through the superintendent. All of us have our opinions, our thoughts on how he should handle things. Our job is to share that with him, and then he makes the best decision that he can. And it's not like one person has more authority on this board to direct him or tell him what to do. We all give him our opinion, and then he makes his best decision. And then the 7 of us, through our evaluation, that's when we can share, I've had these strong feelings and you just ignore me. That's where we have the opportunity to express if we don't agree with what he's doing. But none of us, I don't have no matter what my role is, no one has the authority to respond to a community member, their opinion. And so we do have the option, if community members are reaching out to us as board members, to talk to them individually and share our own opinions as an individual. But the line that I've seen crossed is the board president sharing completely their opinion, signing off as representing the entire board, and then that's where there's
Rachel?
inaccurate information.
I would, in my time and training through the ISBA and different programs, I would say unilaterally, it is a consensus that a collaboration between the board and the superintendent is better and more appropriate than letting or telling the superintendent to respond and then annually either celebrating or castigating him for how he has done that. So I would hope that we as a board would have a collaborative relationship with our superintendent that would not be rife with gotcha moments.
Daisha?
Let me clarify, just because I want to make sure Dr. Greiner understands. My point was not any gotcha moments. I believe that when the evaluation comes, he should be full aware if there's something that a board member struggles with. My point is that none of us have the power to direct him. He's the one that's making these decisions, sharing information, answering questions. None of us have that authority.
Would you be comfortable, Dr. Greiner? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, forgot.
So I don't mean this to sound flippant, but I think that there is a potential solution to this issue.
Okay.
It sounds like we need to have a group chat or a Slack channel to talk about these issues in real time and then give real time approval to the superintendent and the board president for what we want said.
Gotta be careful, you can't do that. That's illegal.
Don't forget your buttons.
We can't have sidebar conversations in that way. That's against our policy and isn't discoverable, so.
Well, that's why I suggest a Slack channel, because if it's managed by the organization, then it is discoverable.
Yep, Daisha?
So that's actually the purpose often of work sessions, is anything that we want to discuss, or we can do it in these public meeting, in a regular meeting, but typically work sessions is bringing these topics, having a discussion, and then Dr. Greiner making that decision. But my understanding is, and I don't feel comfortable with email discussions, text messages, Slack, any of those things. Open door policy says this needs to happen in a public meeting.
Would you feel comfortable with each individual, like, let's say we get an email that has questions that need to be addressed. Would you feel comfortable with George writing the acknowledgement, and then each individual board member gives their opinion to Dr. Greiner, and he replies on behalf of the district with his education and wisdom and knowledge? Are you comfortable with that, first of all?
I guess I'd have to hear an example because I haven't seen my communication with the public to have an issue. If I am responding to someone, and I'll just make, Mrs. Mumford has shared with me before, hey, so-and-so said this, I thought you'd want to know. Thank you. Then I communicate, and I haven't seen an issue with that, or Dr. Yen, if she's given me information.
So that would,
I wouldn't want to have to go and communicate with each board member. I would trust that if Dr. Mumford gave me information, I said, thank you, I'm going to reach out to that person, that I could address that and we'd be good. But maybe I'm not thinking of the right example that.
no, that's okay. That's good. I think that that would require the rest of the board then to refrain from contacting that member of the public outside of the, we've received your email, thank you for contacting us, we'll run it through the appropriate channels. So that would mean that if Joe Cool sends us an email wanting Slurpees in the cafeteria, we simply acknowledge it, and we don't say, yeah, I really love Slurpees, or Slurpees are going to turn your teeth blue, or anything else. We just acknowledge it and pass it on to Dr. Greiner, and he handles it. Could we all agree to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think most of the time, from my experience in the last 2 years, the email we get from the communities, most of the time, I mean, 90% is pretty much administration-related issues. They either clarification, or there's some day-to-day operations. It's not really our school board issues. I think in that case, most of the time, 90%, I mean, the secretary for our policy, secretary just acknowledge, hey, we get this new message, and then we can forward that to our school administrations. They can handle that, whatever. I mean, that's their authorities. And there's maybe 10%, 20% that they have some things about our board. I think any of our individual board member doesn't have any authorities. We come here,
Exactly.
sit
That's why
here, and then we
that'd be a
we
good
work
solution.
together authorities. So that's why I think it's not appropriate for any single board members reply to their message saying, hey, you can go ahead if you want to say something.
No, I was just, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So and just in that case, we can bring that to the meetings, either work session or these kind of regular meetings. If there's something serious, we can talk about that over here. And I think that's what I'm thinking. Maybe Dr. Greiner, I don't know if you think that's a good idea, but from what I can tell, most of 90% of them, and say, for example, the cafeteria things, we can forward to Dr. Greiner. Dr. Greiner can talk to somebody, whoever take care of that, and get that issue solved, and reply to the patron, the parents, whoever, and get that issue. So maybe she can, Dr. Greiner can put in some notes in the Friday notes, give us some update what's going on. We ought to have this settled, everybody happy, something like that. Or he didn't give us any update. From my point of view, it's okay. That's their authorities, their business. It's not our boss' business. Thank you.
Could I make just a quick comment? So the Slurpee example, well, but it's an important point in that earlier the dialogue you all were agreeing about the importance of the chain of command too. And so it's sometimes more appropriate if the patron is comfortable, and it also builds trust over time, to suggest to the patron, if they're comfortable, to take their concern directly to Mrs. Fitzsimmons. And in that example or situation, they would find that she's extremely passionate about her work. No. It's just, it was a good example for us to stress the importance of that chain of command, building the trust. Someone used a teacher as an example earlier. Teachers want to serve their students. They're in it because they love their kids. Mrs. Simmons is in it because she values nutrition and the importance of students prepared to learn through their basic needs being met. And so just remember that chain of command too, I would encourage. And in those situations where a patron is willing to communicate to the person through your direction where it should go, that can be appropriate too. And if not, I'm happy to work with the patron to help them get to the position they need. But the more we all do that, the more we build trust in our community with the leaders, and teachers are leaders. So if it's the classroom or the cafeteria, that chain of command is so important because that's how we start to build the trust among our community and within our school community.
Boy, have I seen when I get outside of it, I make a big mess. So I agree. I'm hearing two things, and before I let you guys talk, I want to summarize. I'm hearing that we have a lot of opinions about how communication should happen, but there's more agreement than I actually thought there would be. And I'm hearing that this conversation is going to take a little bit longer than I initially expected. Would it be appropriate at this point in the conversation for me to table this to a work session and call a work session where we can all discuss this with the public if they want to come hear it? Does that, the two of you that have something to say, do you want to talk first and then we'll do that? Okay, go ahead, David.
I just had what I thought might be a solution.
Okay.
General practice, George provides a response, and then Dr. Greiner makes a decision on if it's something that's a simple, straightforward, factual thing to respond to, if it's something that needs to get sent off to the appropriate area, like if it's food related, or he makes a decision on if he wants some quick feedback. Since we're all using our district emails, those are publicly accessible, so those having a discussion there shouldn't violate public access law.
As long as we don't.
As long as we're not making decisions.
Right, make a decision.
We're providing our thoughts brief thoughts to Dr. Greiner, or it's something that needs to be put into a work session. And he makes that decision, communicates it to us, and then makes a decision. Because it does sound like 90% of, at least Lawrence's estimate, are quick factual things that we don't need to be bringing to these meetings or other work meetings.
Rach?
I just think it bears saying here in our public meeting, because certainly somebody listening to this conversation could question if it's if when they bring questions or issues to us, if we care about those. And I think the answer that needs to be stated very clearly, I believe that everybody in this group would agree that we definitely want to hear from the public, and that is not problematic for us.
Right.
So we want their feedback. We want to know. And I think really what's at the heart of this conversation we're having is what is the best way to get them the best answer closest to the child and the resolution. And so I felt like that needed to be said on this topic while we're here on it.
Thank you. I agree. I will ask Mrs. Julian to get a work session scheduled for us with everybody available so that we can duke this one out nicely and gently and politely, and we'll finish up that discussion. But I think this was productive. Yeah.
So forgive me if this was already covered in previous years because I'm new here, but have the attorneys ever had a discussion with us about what constitutes a vote or a decision?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll talk about that during the work session too, I think. Yeah. David? No? Okay. Yui?
So many of us agree that most of the email communications actually for ours, we kind of lead the traffic to the right direction. And people don't necessarily know who to contact for what issue. So in that case, I think to make it more efficient, we can create some FAQ.
Sure.
And give people, for example, it's food service question or it's a transportation question and who to contact or principal. And so I think we should try to avoid forward those emails to that person because people will feel, oh, I didn't do my job. That's why I got an email from, Sean. Or,
That's a fair point.
I think, many times people, I made that point before, and many of our students, actually families, the parents didn't grow up in this country. They don't necessarily know how to solve some of those problems. And so they didn't know the chain of command. I didn't know until I became a board member. So I think we should put that in mind and then make it very clear. That way people have the right chain, they can follow the right chain of command and they can go to the right channel to solve their problems.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. I think getting this scheduled and we'll have a less formal discussion about it. This wasn't a conversation that I was prepared to have when I was elected the first time, and I appreciate everyone having it today. And I think that will further simmer things down as we move forward. Where are we? We're on number 6. Dr. Greiner, do you have a report?
I do have a quick report. As you're aware, the Indiana Department of Education has approved the new diploma. They approved that in December. These new requirements will be effective for all students, beginning with the graduating class of 2029. So I want to begin by acknowledging and thanking Mr. Rogers, our counseling team, and staff for the work that they have already begun to do with regard to unpacking what it means specifically for our course offerings per pathway. And so they're just in the beginning stages of talking. They haven't come together and talked, but I know Mr. Rogers is working with the counseling team on a plan, and we're going to want to be inclusive in this approach. There's 3 primary readiness seals you may recall. Those are the enrollment seal, the employment seal, and the enlistment and service seal. Each seal also has opportunity for an honors seal or an honors plus seal, offering students flexibility to tailor their high school experience to meet their future goals. Again, I just want to say, because we're in the beginning stages of planning now, thank you to Mr. Rogers and to our counseling team and to each school staff member for their efforts in understanding and implementing the new diploma requirements and or the work that they will do through dialogue and planning. Their commitment to aligning our course offerings with these new pathways ensures that we are well prepared to support our students for their individual aspirations, dreams, and goals upon graduation. I'd also like to give a quick update on the strategic planning process. It's progressing along nicely. Surveys are complete, as you're aware, and as I've reported before, but I just want to reiterate that Mr. Jones continues to look at that information and analyze it, put it together in a way that he'll be able to report out to the board. Focus groups have occurred throughout December. There were 2 virtual meetings, and there was 1 in-person meeting. There'll be another meeting that's virtual, January 15th, so Wednesday of this week at 1 p.m. And then we'll also have a Graduates Prepared to Succeed workshop that will be facilitated by Mr. Jones, and it will be with our administrators focusing on graduation requirements. What does preparation look like at each school level? And then how does that information get linked into our strategic plan? From there, the next phase will be to move to goals and strategies and development. And in March, Mr. Jones plans to present to you all, the board, with regard to findings, information that's been gathered from the surveys and from those focus groups. And then Mr. Jones will also explain and discuss next steps in the process to getting that final product, the strategic plan. I finally want to celebrate one of our students, student author Felicia Shee. She's published a book. We celebrated her accomplishment by visiting Felicia at Willis. She was very surprised.
It's a real book.
I'll pass it along. Yeah, I will pass it to each of you, but I walked in with the book. She was very excited. This is what's exciting to me. When I asked Mrs. Julian to order the book for me when I found out she'd published the book. This and the process from 4th grade through 6th grade, or where she's at today in 6th grade, to get to this point is really, really exciting. She was excited to see it. I am excited because this new young author, I've got a signed copy of her book. I'll pass it out and let you each see it. I've invited her to come and talk with you guys. She's going to come and speak with you next meeting, and she'll talk about the process of publishing her book. Her mother has already agreed to allow her to come and do that. She agreed with me first and looked pretty excited and very proud. And then the board can ask any questions regarding the process to get here. Here's what I said to her. I said, I notice it says book 1. Something tells me you're going to write more. She goes, you bet. So she's not done with this series to be of books. She also, something I'm very proud of, recognized several students, several her piano teachers, different people in the book. And if you want to peek at that when I send it around, send it down to you, you can look. But Mrs. Sue Stan, one of our very own teachers, Mrs. Mara Brown, and Mrs. Celeste Fernandez were all acknowledged in this book as thank you for the support and inspiration. And that is West Side teachers working with committed West Side students. So there's RDP in the room today. Thank you.
You're so much better than the East Side.
Aren't we, though?
I feel like this is going to be worth money someday. Like, this is like having an
My signed
original
book?
J.K. Rowling or something. That's amazing. Thank you very much for that. That's exciting.
My pleasure.
Next, we've got Mrs. Prunk, and I'm going to read and listen with half an ear.
Yeah, mine's not quite so exciting as that, but claims for the period of December 5th, 2024 to January 8th, 2025 total $8,259,446.21, including regular corporation expenses and the Wabash Valley Education Center expenses. Of this amount, $3,715,841.56 were paid towards wages, salaries, and benefits. That's showing 4 payrolls and 3 benefits from those payrolls. I've provided the final fund report for November 2024 in your board packets. Total cash on hand in all funds was $21,367,123. The education fund had a cash balance of $6,020,808. Preliminary fund report for December has been included in your board packets, but we have not yet finished reconciling the month nor the year-end processes. I'm hoping to finish that up this week. This week, we are finishing up employee W-2s. Those are going out to the buildings tomorrow to be delivered, and we'll begin working on vendor 1099 forms as well as the December 31 Form 9.
Thank you. This is a real book. Another 3 years had passed, brief like an uncontainable scent, almost unbelievably gone the very moment you caught it. She's in 6th grade?
She started it in 4th grade.
Unbelievable. That's amazing. I'm so excited about that. Okay, board reports. First of all, I would like to say that I have a rough idea of what the board assignments will be that I've sketched out just in case. And it largely keeps people where they are. But if you have opinions that you have not yet shared with me about your board assignment, I would like to hear those in the next few days so that I can solidify those, and I'll email each person their assignment sometime in the next little while, couple weeks. As far as my previous board assignment, that was legislative, and we are off to a rip-roaring start. Here, Stu can probably tell me the exact number, but there's a bill that would dissolve IPS and Gary and 2 other districts and make them into charter schools, which we're real excited about. And of course, they change and evolve over time, and I'm sure that the final version of that bill won't resemble altogether the initial version, but I will keep you all updated about the things that we need to pay attention to a little bit later. Probably February and March are going to be big months for contacting your elected representatives. And that is, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I saw you pick up your hand. Does anyone else, I know Rachel has a statement from the foundation. David, yeah. Sure.
I was in a meeting earlier with some colleagues, and one of the things that came up is regarding that specific bill, raising it to folks in March is going to be too late.
Is it too late? Okay.
If you want to have your voice heard, you really need to do it soon.
Soon.
Yeah.
Okay. I will, you all are getting the ISBA updates as well, right? And they're doing them as videos now, which is really fantastic because it's a lot easier to listen to a video while you fold laundry. So if anyone sees anything in there that they want me to carry to Indianapolis, we're going to the ISBA legislative luncheon day. What is that, February something?
February 18th.
18th, I knew you'd remember. And so I will be having lunch hopefully with Chris Campbell, and we'll invite Spencer Deary, and we'll invite Sheila Klinker usually stops by the table as she, circulates. So we'll see if we can make sure they understand where West Side is at as far as the bills that are before the legislature. So Rachel, would you like to read the WLCSF update for me?
I have a couple of things. One, the board teacher discussion was canceled in December, and so for lack of agenda items, so that was not held. However, it's transitioned on there. I did complete my ISBA board onboarding. You can look for the Region 4 Director note. It will be coming out in the next week or so. I am still going to try and make it to, they've asked us to come all through that lunch. I am trying to make my schedule. So all those things are updates. But likewise, I think there's going to be some great overlap between Amy and I in those two roles. And so we'll be kind of touching base there. The notes from Wendy Eiler, she very graciously provided them. As a reminder, the deadline to apply for the foundation scholarships is quickly approaching. That is Monday, February the 3rd. So if you have any remind about that, or sorry, that's not teachers. Please excuse me. That is seniors who are applying for scholarships. So if you have anybody with seniors, please encourage them to apply. The 2025 Scarlet and Gray Dinner and Auction is Saturday, March the 1st, so mark your calendars for that. The Agricultural Center again this year. The event website is through the foundation website. And you can check the site for auction items, and I'm certain also for tickets. The Scarlet and Gray Committee is also seeking sponsors along with auction packages for this event. So you can reach out to Wendy or West Lafayette Education Foundation board member, so feel free to contact me if you'd like to do that.
Oh, your mic isn't on. I just got a text. Sorry.
Nab it. Sorry.
Sorry.
Also, this is a really cool one. Founders Day will take place on March the 27th and is being celebrated by the Ed Foundation. This is a day to celebrate philanthropy in our school community. On March 27th, 1855, the town of Kingston was platted. At the corner of North and Salisbury Streets, 1/4 of the block was designated for school purposes, donated by Jesse and Jane Lutz on March 27th, 1855. Their donation of land and forethought in planning laid the foundation for what would become the first school in the area, later to be named West Lafayette. And finally, she asked us to pass along gratitude to the many people and organizations who made the year-end special for families enrolled in the backpack program. The foundation received donations of snack foods, kid-friendly, easy-to-prep meals, breakfast items, and so much more from employees of Summers Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Each family also received multiple books to keep from the West Lafayette Public Library, and alumni George Karloftis and Kaya Harris provided gift cards for each family to use as needed. I look forward to serving on that board. That's all. Thank you.
And for anyone who couldn't hear you in the beginning, it was that the seniors ought to apply for the grants and that the Scarlet and Gray is March the 1st, right?
Yes.
And the website is WLCSC.org.
Correct.
Cool. Okay, does anybody else have a committee report? I see you reaching for your button.
First, a follow-up. And
Button.
so,
Oh, sorry, you are.
besides this announcement for the scholarship, I wonder whether the high schoolers and the seniors and their families receive that announcement as well?
They do. The Ed Foundation does an exceptional job of sending a net of information out. So probably the seniors are sick of hearing about it, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah, just to make sure, because not many people follow the school board
Yeah, when you have the
meetings.
senior, you'll find that the counseling team does an amazing job of sending out weekly or biweekly updates that tell you now's the time to apply for these, now's the time to be looking at this. We need your measurements for your cap and gown, et cetera. Yeah, and you get a lot of email.
Both the kids and the students and their parents,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
because sometimes they may need reminders.
Yep.
And as for, the committee report, class meeting, next one will be in February 18th, 2 o'clock.
Great, thanks. Anything else from the committees? Okay, super. But we're not really done. The future meetings, will have a possible work session on Monday, February 10th. That will be advertised if we decide to have it. Where's the policy committee at? Or have you met this year yet? Or are you going to meet?
We are waiting on the board chair to direct that.
Okay.
And so the intent was to get the new members on and see if you wanted to shift the membership in that
Right.
committee and figure out when the timing would be.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll discuss that in the email I will send about board assignments. Yes, Lawrence?
Regarding the committee, you were working on that? You were working on that?
But I will work on that with your help if you're willing. That'd be great.
Just say, right now I'm serving on the park, I'm just open, I can continue to serve on that, or I can have flexibility to rotate around. So that's why
Great.
So we rotate around, maybe you can, each one get better and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to whatever can do that.
Super. Yep, I know we have a new member with a particular interest in the parks.
You continue to join the park.
What's that?
Before you have any arrangement for the committees, I can still join the park meeting, right? The park.
When
board
is their next meeting?
2 weeks.
2
meeting. In
weeks?
2 weeks.
I'll make sure you know before then.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. But I think there's no rush. I mean, before you make any decision, I can still continue on that and then whatever. I'm flexible, so.
Okay. Rachel?
I'm terribly sorry. The December board teacher discussion meeting was canceled, but I did receive a note from the discussion rep, and I forgot that I need to read that as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Mrs. Hart asked that we let the board know that the WLEA appreciates the board approving the calendar for the 26-27 school year.
Awesome.
Passing that along.
Well, thank you. Okay, the next board meeting will be February 10th at 6 p.m. and it'll be here. We'll be here forevermore because it's so beautiful. And upcoming dates of interest, there's no school on January 20th for Martin Luther King Day. There's no school on February 14th for Professional Staff Day, which is going to really be a bummer. No Valentine's. Oh, that's okay. I'm sure it's easier. And the Snow Makeup Day number 1 is February 17th. There's no school that day, so that'll be a nice long weekend. I guess that makes up for the Valentine's. Next, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 8:05, and I'm going to reopen the Board of Finance
You
meeting.
can't.
No.
Who's the president of the
Well,
finance board?
It's Dr. Yin, but she asked me to. Is that okay?
You
Yeah.
have to announce it.
We need to make a normal motion to adjourn.
Shoot, yes, we do. Gosh darn it, I got all excited. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by George, seconded by David. Can I get everybody to vote with your hands? I'm sorry. Okay, that's everybody. Thank you. Now we're adjourned at 8:05 still. Let's have a break. Let's have a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and do the finance thing real quick, okay? Okay. The first item of business on this agenda is selecting the president of the Finance Committee. And this only meets once a year at the January meeting, which means you forget everything you ever knew in between. Could I please have a nomination for president of the Finance Committee? Rachel?
Nominate Lawrence.
Okay. Lawrence, do you accept that nomination? Cool. Is there a second? George seconds. Okay. Does anyone else want to be the president of the Finance Committee? Okay, sounds good. Buttons. All those in favor of Lawrence being the president of the Finance Committee, please indicate with your buttons. And that is 7 out of 7. So I will give this to you. Do you have a copy of this agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, next item is the secretary. So it's over to you.
Next item on the agenda will be I will select secretaries. So I'm open for the nominations for secretary of school financial committee. Go ahead, George.
I would nominate Daisha.
So Daisha, do you? Yeah, thank you for a second. Do you agree? Do you accept? You agree to serve? Yes, thank you. So any discussions for this nomination? And okay, no, then we can go ahead.
I did it last year, you signed the minutes, and I got to have input on those minutes, so make sure there was good information, and then that's it, so happy to do it.
Okay, thank you for Daisha to willing to serve. Now it's time to vote. We can go ahead vote. So thank you, 7 over 7. So Daisha was elected the secretary for our school board, financial board. And the next item will be the investment officer report and the investment register. So Ms. Crown.
Thank you. About forgot it. So to start off with the investing officer's report in our investment register, the school district holds accounts with Huntington National Bank and had investments through Huntington Trust in 2024. Interest earned on all accounts for the period December 1st, 2023 through November 30, 2024 totaled, hold your horses, probably not going to hear this again, this is a good number, $691,733.93, which was more than last year. I don't think we're going to have that again for this year, though, so. A breakdown of monthly interest in all accounts is included in your board packets. Currently, the district has 5 certificates of deposit and 2 treasury bills that will mature over the next 2 years with interest rates ranging from 4.11% to 5.4%. And we will continue to invest with the highest interest rates possible as CDs and bills mature. There's nothing to approve for this line item.
Yeah, so that's now we can move on to the next item, which is physical indicators report.
And this is always something fun for new board members to get in January. It's a lot of information at once, but I think it's a good introduction to like what our numbers look like. So Brandon is going to be bringing up each table as I talk about it, and I will briefly explain what each one means. But first of all, this Fiscal and Qualitative Indicators Committee was established under House Enrolled Act 1315 back in 2018 to develop indicators used to evaluate the financial condition of school corporations. Indiana Code 51378 requires Indiana school corporations to present the report on these indicators for review by the board at a public board meeting in January when the Board of Finance convenes. Fiscal indicators I'm sharing this evening are located on the Distressed Unit of Appeals Board's website under the Fiscal Indicators section, and you can bring those up for any school corporation. So if we're going to take a look at the first indicator graph that outlines the average daily membership, or what we call ADM, for the school corporation, showing both the fall count and the spring count. These counts are what our school tuition support funding from the state is actually based upon. The graph shows data through the 23-24 school year. And as you can see, the ADM increased slightly from the 15-16 school year through the 18-19 school year and has leveled off since. For 24-25, our funded ADM is currently 2,185 for the fall count, down 23 students from last February, mainly due to our kindergarten numbers, which is the trend across the state. Most kindergarten classes are down basically across the United States at this point. So please also remember the ADM does not include students receiving educational services at West Lafayette from other districts. Currently, we have approximately 133 of those students from TSC. We can go on to the next one.
Additional students. Additional students.
Yes. The second indicator is new and from last year and shows the demographics of our ADM students broken down by free reduced lunch, special education, and English language learner percentages. Note that our free reduced lunch percent has increased over the past couple of years. Special education as a percent has decreased, and ELL has increased. The third indicator graph shows year-end fund balances across all different types of funds, and we have quite a few. Notice the bright green and the light pink for federal funds typically run in the negative as they are reimbursement funds. We have to expend money in those funds before we can get reimbursed for those funds. Overall, the school corporation maintains appropriate and healthy cash balances in its funds to maintain operations if there were ever an emergency. The fourth indicator graph shows the annual deficit or surplus for the district for all funds. Total revenue is indicated in the first column, green. Total expense, or sorry, green. Total expenses are shown in the second column, with the third column showing the difference between the two. As a whole, the school corporation ended 2023 with a surplus across all funds, due in part to the healthy cash balances that we do maintain. Please remember that this does include all funds, including those federal funds that run in the negative. So school corporations that have a lot of federal funds, they could actually run into the deficit because they have so many federal funds that run in the negative. So. Fifth indicator graph shows the combination of budgeted fund cash balances and education, operations, referendum, and rainy day funds as compared to total expenditures in those funds. The absolute minimum percent for the industry is 8.3%, or the equivalent of 1 month of expenses. I wouldn't want to be a school corporation that only has 1 month of expenses as far as a cash balance. More acceptable industry standards call for 3 months to even 6 months worth of expenses as a cash balance. Our school corporation has historically done a great job conserving cash. As you can see, we're in the 50%. Okay. Sixth indicator graph shows revenue by type for each calendar year. As can be seen, total revenue has seen a slight increase over the years. The largest section in blue is our state tuition support revenue. Notice that even though our ADM has remained steady or even increased over the years, our state tuition support has remained fairly steady. And the last indicator graph shows our operating referendum revenue as a percent of the total revenue. As of the end of 2023, our operating referendum amounted to 17.2% of total revenue across all funds for the school corporation. Notice the amount of revenue has been increasing. This is due to increased assessed values being taxed at the same rate. All else equal, without the referendum, we would have had approximately $6.2 million in educational and operational expenses that would not have been covered in 2023. So once again, we appreciate our community and the fact that they support our referendum. Without that, it would not be fun. So, okay. Any questions on that information? As I said, that's available on the DUAB website. You can pull up ours. I did do a combined file so that it's on the public site as well as in your board packets, but you can pull up any school corporation's fiscal indicators information on that website.
Thank you. Any discussions, questions, comments? Yeah, I have a quick question. So
I hope I can answer it.
Basically, I think at least I heard people want to get a better understanding of our monthly financial report, or auto numbers, tables. So I just wondering, maybe whenever you get a chance, maybe we have some 1 hour, 2 hour working sessions, or maybe just the information sessions.
Okay.
So you can explain what kind of major expense. Okay. Because as our board member, basically the major duty is kind of overseeing the financial things.
Okay.
And a lot of times we have to explain to the parents or community members how we use their monies.
Right.
So if you can, I understand that our school's financial is more simple than, the public company. There's much more complicated, but it's still kind of difficult, and it's not easy to understand. So we have two, especially we have two new board members, and whenever it's not rush, whenever you get a chance, maybe we have 1 hour, 2 hour explanation session, information session, so we can get a better understand. That will be, I think,
So
very good.
not a problem. You know, I love teaching about those things. I would like some direction on exactly what you would like me to share or some questions to answer maybe.
Okay, sure.
Because as you know, it's a very wide, a lot of information is included in that. And
That's right.
we just cover just that little bit in our budget workshop. But if there's something additional that you would like me to teach about, give me some guidance. Because, yeah, like I said, I can go in about 85 different directions. So, okay.
Yeah, we'll think about it.
Okay.
May I?
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead, George.
I just wanted to know if you've done any forecasting about the incoming Braun administration's potential property tax changes.
So we actually got some good news the other day. So have we done any forecasts about that? No. The Legislative Services Agency does do a lot of those calculations for the legislators during the session so they could see what that impact would be. But we did get some news the other day that, I don't know if you remember, and so the two new board members, this will be a little bit new to you, but remember we had the apartment issue this past year. So apparently the DLGF has updated those cost models, and we should not see the same impact going on this next year.
That's great.
And
Thank you
so
for update.
Eric Grossman is very positive about the changes that they have made for 25 pay 26. So,
Okay.
okay.
So that's not the issue anymore, huh?
Let's hope not.
Okay.
We don't know exactly what that will look like yet, but he's very positive, so.
Okay. I think the legislation is very hard to forecast because the whole property tax the system is very complicated. If you
Right.
change anything, and then the consequences
Yeah.
will be very hard to estimate.
And what they're talking about in the legislative session right now, it's very broad. And as we know, what it ends up being is very different than what they start with. But like I said, the Legislative Services Agency does put together reports for any of those or analyses for any of those bills that come out that are financially related for the legislators to see what the actual impact is going to be.
Yeah, I think the new governor, they may have some things. So you want to have
We're
some?
going to have a busy year, so.
Just a follow-up in Michelle's question regarding what people want to learn. And based on my personal experience, and right now we have two new board members, and I'm not sure about your background regarding this school finance, but when I first started as a board member, and I found it's very helpful to have that kind of interactive learning. And at that time, Karen was my mentor, and every month we met before the board meeting. I asked her questions about the account payable and many other things, and so I think we can start with the files that board members needed to review every month, and including the codes. For example, we have a lot of acronyms, and they mean different things. And that, first of all, read those files. Second, I think some general idea about I'm talking about, I already learned a lot in the past 4 years, but I assume for new board members, it'd be helpful to know all the source of finance and then all the major expenditures and the general regulations. And so it'd be
And I
helpful
do
to
believe
understand
that we will be doing what we did similar to when Lawrence and Deja came on, and I did a binder, I believe. Will we be doing that again?
We could do some of that, but it's also if Mr. Wong is suggesting that some of that occur for everybody for a refresher, I don't think that's a bad idea either.
No,
So we
I
can
don't.
certainly discuss it.
Yeah, also, I think those interactive sessions will be really helpful. People read the file and ask questions, clarification questions, and hear other people's questions. And it's even, I believe, even for relatively experienced board members, it will be helpful as well. I would love to join those meetings if I'm allowed.
Yeah, just quick. I think just something, for example, for me, I spend several hours to understand when I run the campaigns. So basically something like, so what kind of funding revenue source? We have the local source, we have state source, we have federal government source, how much we have. and then what's the major expense we have. So this some, say, for example, the teacher's compensation is the biggest one. We have some debt service, we have some maintenance. So each one roughly have how many, 3-4 millions. The teacher's compensation maybe 20 millions, something like that. So when we
So
have,
something similar to what I do during the budget workshop then?
something like that. So we have just have bigger pictures. So now when we have talk about when we are voting for any financial related things, we can see, oh, this fall into which categories, this for revenue or from expense, and anything legal things. For example, the governor want to change the tax, they change such things, and then we can understand, oh, this will be impact some our revenues from these revenues and how much consequences we can, that kind of thing. So I think it's just high level. It's not really detailed things. So that's my understanding. Thank you.
Lawrence,
3 people who want to talk, Lawrence.
Lawrence, you got 3 people who want to talk.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We all have one-on-one meetings scheduled with the 3 of you. So it would probably be helpful just during those meetings to have some conversations about what it is that we know and what we should know. And then from there, maybe Michelle, you make a decision on what you think would be most appropriate for all of us to have as a group
Yep.
and versus what some of us would need individually.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Amy.
And the training binder that Dr. Springer and I created is still on the box and should be available to everybody. And I have made myself available. I'm sure any of your colleagues would be happy to answer any questions the 2 of you may have as you go forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest as well that the ISBA New Board Member Academy is very comprehensive and I would highly recommend it. And it is, would give you an outside view. In other words, not a West Lafayette flavored view, but just a general view of what is a board member's role and responsibility.
Thank you. Any other comments, suggestions?
Could I make one
ahead.
one comment? That typically for the current the board members that have been on, we will include Michelle in that next one, but typically it's been Mrs. Roth and me. And I tell you that only so that you know that for this next one, as per Dr. Perper's suggestion, which I think is a great idea, we'll include all 3 of us on that one-on-one.
Thank you. Any other comments? So now we can adjourn this West Lafayette Community School Corporation Financial Board of Finance annual meeting at 8:30.
I'd like to make them.
Do we need I need a motion? Yeah.
Second.
Okay, everybody agree? Raise your hand.
Yes.
That's 7. Oh, yes, okay. Says 7:07, agree. Thank you. We just adjourn the meeting. Thank you.